Oh, do you want to? We can go in the living room.
Go canoodle in the bedroom.
Yeah,
Just quiet, okay? We don't want to hear any of that shit.
Okay.
When I was a kid, I didn't, and this kind of, came with me as I grew older, but I never really knew what I wanted to be, and I still don't really know. I'm 33. But I enjoyed making things out of nothing. I don't really like playing with toys. I had a couple of soft toys, but I predominantly would go out and forage for things like sticks and other plant matter and come home and build things. And I loved that. So I never really thought it would be an option to study plants. But now, when I reflect on the things that I enjoyed doing as a kid, there's still things that excite me now, and things that I would like to explore more. Like whenever I'm reading about nature, anything to do with plants, I get really excited. Whereas when I'm reading about tech stuff, which is the work that I've been doing for most of my career, it's interesting, but I don't have that spark that ignites within me like I do when I'm out in nature or reading things about all the fascinating things that wildlife, learning about wildlife and all that. So I studied psychology from undergrad to doctorate, and I am genuinely fascinated and passionate, I guess, about the human mind and how it feeds into our behavior and our thinking and what the mind actually is, what is consciousness, all of that stuff. I love learning about that, and it was always interesting, and it opened up my perspective and understanding of people in general, and it's made me, I think, a better person because I try not to make quick judgments. Rather, I ask questions and try to understand things on a deeper level. So I am a co-founder of ThoughtWired. Our main founder and CEO, Dimitri, he started the company with the motivation to create an assistive system for his cousin who was born completely paralyzed. And so he has cerebral palsy, and it affects his entire body, including his voice. So he cannot speak and he cannot move. But from his family's interaction with him, they figured out that he has a sound mind. So he can understand everything that's happening to him, but he can't respond to it. And because of his disabilities, there's no form of assistive technology that works for him. And Dimitri watched a TED Talk about this new type of technology called a brain-computer interface. And so this device doesn't require any physical capacity from users. It just requires you to have brain function, and most of us have brain function. And he found that really inspirational and wanted to use that technology to help his cousin. And around the same time, I had finished my master's degree and I was working for the Ministry of Health, and I hated it. It was a really good job to have straight out of university, but it was really menial work. I was doing the National Health Survey and it was really boring. And people didn't want me in their houses. I had to go to people's houses and measure things and ask them really personal questions, and they had just met me. And so a lot of people hated me, and I was like, oh, I don't like being hated. And so I lasted 6 weeks in that job. And around the same time, Dimitri was posting about this thing that he wanted to do for his cousin. And I was like, oh, this sounds amazing. I didn't even know this existed or could be a possibility. And he was looking for people to help him flesh out the idea, specifically for the University of Auckland Spark, 100K Spark Entrepreneurial Challenge, which is now called Velocity. And so I threw my hand up. I was like, oh, please, I'm not doing anything, and this seems super interesting and useful. And kind of I know some things about the brain. So I was doing health psychology at uni, that was my specialization. And so that was 8 years ago. And so I came on board, and James Powell, who's a biomedical engineer, he was doing his PhD and procrastinating from his PhD. He jumped on board as well, and we entered the competition. We came second, won the social category, and they gave us $25,000 seed funding and a 3-month stint at the Ice House. And from there we were like, oh, maybe this actually has legs. Why don't we, focus more on it? And when I was doing my research, I was like, oh, wait, this technology isn't that new. It's been around for 50 years. Why isn't it out in the real world yet? And when I did the research, we found that the main barrier was that they had been developing this technology for people with disabilities, but not actually building it and testing it with people who have disabilities. So they were just assuming that if the technology works for typically developed able-bodied people, it would translate to people with disabilities, and that really was not the case. There were so many things that they were missing about the experience of people with disabilities and their interactions with any assistive technology, let alone a brain interface, which is something completely abstract. And at that point in time, because we didn't have enough resources, I thought I could use the university resources, and went back to university and did a PhD on how to develop brain interfaces for people with severe physical disabilities. And that's what my research was on, and it fed directly into the development of the technology within our company. So it was like win-win, but also fried my brain. You won't solve a problem with your technology. You'll solve part of it, but you actually need a whole bunch of different things to converge in order to kind of chip away at the problem. That links into funding. So even with people who are funding, what are they called? What is social?
Grants?
Social enterprise. Even investors who are investing in social enterprises, although they're saying we're measuring social impact, they're still very heavily focused on the financial return on investment. Even if your social impact is much higher than your return on investment, they won't invest in you because the financial return still has to be quite high. So I feel like it's a bit of a cop-out situation. A lot of companies, they might break even. So and they might not even scale in the traditional sense. When you look at Silicon Valley tech companies and stuff, their aim is to scale as quickly as possible, whereas it's not really relevant in a lot of social enterprises, I feel. And it's kind of the wrong approach as well, I think. There's no reason to try and scale up. You should be trying to solve problems. That should be the aim, and scaling up isn't necessarily going to solve that. So it's been really difficult for us to attract funding from day one. So there's a lot of dangers there, but because you're forced to work really quickly, you're not spending time on thinking things through. I'm not going to there is no glamour when it comes to failure, and people you should embrace it and fail quickly and la la la. It doesn't really take away from how difficult it is. And I don't feel like just talking about it is enough for people to recover from the failure and continue with the work. So burnout is a massive thing in anyone doing social and environmental change work. And it means that the people who do want to do the good work, who are probably really capable of doing it, who are very empathetic, creative, they burn out and then they leave and they never want to go back. whereas they're the people that we should be supporting and enabling them to do more of this work and for longer periods of time. So the danger there is that the wrong people are leading. A lot of it is to do with this like patriarchal, like Western way of doing business, which doesn't really care for the people in the communities. I think your team makes a difference. And I worked with people who weren't very comfortable talking about their emotions, and I didn't really know how to talk to them about the problems that I was experiencing in the company and with my work. I did end up like going and seeing my doctor and like taking medication, and also I took a year off from the company as well, but there were some personal things happening in my family that necessitated that anyway. So it was just like good timing, even though it was like a terrible situation, like the worst situation ever. But yeah, it really put things into perspective, and I was like, I actually need to step away for a while.
About your journey and
no. Like I said, I still have no idea what I'm doing. I'm like, oh, opportunity, okay. Yeah. And I'll like dabble in things, but yeah, no, I have no idea what I'm doing. I've never known what I'm like. The only things that I'm like, really led by is by doing meaningful, interesting work, and that can be like quite diverse. Imposter syndrome, like I still, like for example, in our company, I have a PhD in brain interfaces, and I still feel like I am the dumbest person and the most useless person in the company. And no matter what people tell me, like I'll be like, oh, I feel good for maybe a couple of minutes, and I'll be like, I'm shit. Like that's never left me. No matter like what I do, what I achieve. Yeah, to be honest, I think it's privilege. Like if I had like a family and like children and all that sort of stuff that depended on me, then there's no way I would pursue something like this, I think. Or unless it was like stable. I haven't made any money really for the past 8 years. And that's because of the privilege that I've had. Like I lived with my mum and dad when I was studying. And then after that, lived with my husband who's supported me. So if I hadn't had that financial support, I didn't have to worry about like paying bills and all that sort of stuff.
Peter's song, please. Perfect. Okay. Bye, Sarv.